Hey guys, Mr. Shaw here. I'm currently sheltering in, as all of you are, amid the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19, which, in case you weren't sure, stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. A common question I've gotten from a lot of students is, what is the difference between COVID-19 and the flu? And I want to take a couple minutes to try to answer that today. So COVID-19 is actually caused by a coronavirus, which is a type of virus in a family of many other different coronaviruses. Some of them are incredibly deadly, like the MERS outbreak in Saudi Arabia, which was something that killed almost a third of the people that got infected. And then others are almost as harmless as the common cold. So COVID-19 seems like it's somewhere in between. The death rate right now ranges from 1 to 4%, but until testing is more widespread, we really can't be sure how deadly it will end up being. Influenza, on the other hand, is a different family of viruses and also comes in a lot of different varieties. Some of the strains are a lot more deadly, like the outbreak of Spanish flu in 1918. It was estimated to kill maybe 50 million people, maybe more, maybe less, but somewhere in that range, which is about 10% of those that got infected. Then there's the seasonal flu, which kills about a tenth of a percent, partly due to the availability of a vaccine for it and the fact that it is seasonal. Today, I want to compare COVID-19 with the seasonal flu. Both of them have a lot in common. They can both be transmitted by droplets on air and in contact of the skin that has droplets on it. They also can cause a fever and a cough and a lot of the same symptoms. There are some different symptoms like shortness of breath, which is pretty common with COVID-19. But both of these are generally a little bit more deadly for people with pre-existing medical conditions. There are two really important differences that I'm going to highlight today. The first and most obvious one is that the death rate for COVID-19 seems to be at least 10 times that of the flu, maybe even higher. The rates seem to vary pretty widely from country to country. It seems to depend on what's been done to stop the rate of infection, as well as some things we don't really understand yet. So, until we can test people more widely enough to know who actually has the virus and recovers from it, we can't really be sure. And we probably won't know for at least another year. The second difference, though, and I think this is more important, is the difference in the onset of symptoms. It's much slower with COVID-19. People who catch the flu usually start showing symptoms almost immediately. So that usually means that as soon as they get a fever, they stay home, they rest, they go to a doctor. But with COVID-19, it can take anywhere from 2 to 14 days, maybe more, for symptoms to appear. And people who have the virus but no symptoms can still infect other people. Testing people without symptoms hasn't really been common yet in the US at least, and it doesn't always work as far as we know. And so usually the only way to trace it back is to follow the contacts people have made with other people who've become sick. And that usually means that a contagious person might go about their daily life thinking they're perfectly healthy and infect many other people without realizing it until much later. This is why in many states, even after everything is shut down, the number of cases can still spike for a little bit. And it's part of why they're shutting everything down right now, which we'll talk about more in another video. If you want to think about the difference between COVID and why this is such an uncertainty, think about it like this. I'm about to plant these hosta bulbs in my garden, and at the same time, in my garden, there's a ton of seeds of weeds and other things that I don't already know. They may have fallen into the soil. I don't really know what's made contact there, and I don't know what's still able to grow and what maybe won't grow at all. So it's possible that I plant my garden, and then a week or two later, realize that it's been infested with a bunch of weeds. I can treat the garden at that point by pulling out the weeds, but it may take a lot of time and work, and it may not actually be successful. It may still kill the hosta. A better strategy is probably to try to contain my hostas in a pot with clean, fresh soil, at least for a few weeks until I can be sure that no weeds will come up as the weather changes. Then, once the bulb sprouts, I can replant it in the garden and make sure I take regular precautions to weed and water and take care of the space so that the hosta is able to grow and be healthy. Hopefully you can see what I'm getting at, and the analogy isn't perfect because it's possible that the weeds in this case may not go away with the summer. We will have to kind of wait and see, and so that's why we've extended our school closures here in Indiana for another month. But just be sure that while you're staying at home, you're washing your hands, especially every time you make contact with any new surfaces or any new places, and then stay safe. It won't be forever, but it might be a while, because even if you feel healthy, you may be carrying the virus and be able to give it to someone else who might be more vulnerable than you. The good news is, like the flu, thousands of people across the world are currently working on treatments and cures and preventative measures like vaccines. So we're starting to see the rates of infection flatten in places that had outbreaks before we did. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll be back with more soon.